Good morning, dear attendees. Before we begin our webinar, we would like to inform all our dear attendees that the information shared in all our webinars are purely to impart knowledge. Basis information we have available with us extracted from the public domain. In case you intend to act on the same, it will be essential that you review the same with your investment consultant. A disclaimer link is also shared in the chat window. Kindly give us a minute more before we commence this webinar, please. Thank you. Dear attendees, welcome to this version of our webinar on Investor Profit series. We hope that everyone is safe and healthy, physically and financially. I'm sure that some of us have seen this movie, Back to the Future, where Marty accidentally travels back in time in a time travel car, hoping all along to modify the past and change the future. Don't we all wish too we such had a car that we could just sit into and go for a spin through time? Maybe just go for that last trip with the family before COVID-19 pandemic struck, or maybe invest in that one multi-bagger stock that we saw multiply but didn't buy. On a more serious note, with the rising COVID-19 cases and Unlock 4 just a few days away, I'm sure that everyone has tons of questions on their minds. What is next? How will the economy react to the constant changes? And how will the markets move ahead going forward? Coming to the markets, we have all witnessed the way they have bounced back, especially the way that they are disregarding the basic market fundamentals, and shockingly, since the number of COVID cases rise each day. This market reversal makes us wonder whether if there's something that is happening in the economy in the background that is driving this uptrend, especially since economists have predicted a negative GDP for the coming times ahead. So what exactly is going on with the economy and the markets? What has changed since we all last met in May 2020? And what does a potential negative GDP ratio mean for India going ahead? Through this webinar, our aim is to provide you a macroeconomic and markets perspective and give you the potential clarity that you would be looking for. After this panel discussion, we'll have an interactive Q&A session where our panelists will answer all your macro level and sector specific questions. Before I formally introduce our expert panelists, I would like to mention a bit about our company, BP Wealth. We are a 70-year organization focusing on creating wealth for investors through advisory research, PMS, and stockbroking services. Even in times like these, our excellent research desk, PMS services, and Stocksbox products have generated decent returns for our investors. On the panel today, we have a perfect blend of very experienced and intelligent speakers. We are beginning with Sandeep Rajani, Chief Investment Officer at Fort Capital, a mechanical engineer from BIT, MESRA, and has earned his PGDM from IIM Calcutta. He began his career with Tata Steel before jumping passionately into the field of investing. He has also worked with Escort Finance, Lazard Credit Capital, DBS Securities, Sher Khan, Oman National Investment Corporation Holding, Religa Securities, and Indian Aviation, to name a few. Along with him, we have Swapnil Shah, Head Fundamental Research at BP Wealth. A qualified chartered accountant, Swapnil has over 10 years of experience in the field of investments, research, and has been associated with BP Wealth family since 2009. Yuvraj Thakkar. He has done his Master's in Science Finance, specializing in derivatives from Bentley University, Massachusetts, USA. As a managing director of BP Wealth, he has played a major role in the progressive growth of the company. He enabled the company to branch into verticals like advisory, portfolio management, non-banking financial spectrum, fintech, to name a few. I would request Yuvraj to share his thoughts and initiate this panel discussion. Yuvraj sir, over to you.
Hi, Anuj. Good morning. Nice to be here. I trust everyone here is safe, healthy, and happy in these very, very difficult times. It's good to see that the numbers are starting to come under control, and especially in Maharashtra, it's good to see that we've peaked and people are being healthy and returning to work again. Uh, it speaks about the resilience of Maharashtra and specifically Bombay. Uh, uh, I'd like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. This is a follow up to the webinar that we hosted last quarter in April sometime. Uh, the macro economy is a topic that is very close to my heart, and especially in such trying times. Um Back then, we spoke about our projections and what we thought would be the economy going ahead. It's nice to see that even though at that time we had absolutely no clarity of what is happening in the world, of what will happen to our economy, uh, uh, most of I'm going to pat myself and my team on the back a little bit. Most of what we had predicted was accurate. We went out on a limb to say that the revival will start with agriculture and the rural economy, and we've seen that. We forecasted that the drop in auto numbers is temporary, and we saw that all of the auto and auto ancillary companies came back stronger than ever. Um, Now, after 4 months, I can say that this market has taught us a lot. We've seen a complete V-shaped recovery. While we still, as a team, have apprehensions on, sorry, while we still have apprehensions on where the economy will go from now, at least there is a little bit more clarity. Uh, and the one point that I cannot stress enough is the excellent fashion and processes by which our government dealt with an absolutely terrifying situation, coupled with our population and the density of our population. The way we have recovered, the way we have protected our less fortunate, the people who are really dependent, has been outstanding. Yes, there have been mismanagements. Yes, there have been niggles. But with a country of our size and our maturity, we are a very, very young country. The way we have performed is absolutely outstanding.
Thank you, Yuvraj. What is your view on the broking in the financial sector, if I may ask?
Uh, I'm bullish. Up until so, everyone knows the markets have gone through a complete roller coaster and a V-shaped recovery. Uh, Originally, we had our reservations, me specifically, that these valuations don't make sense because the companies that we're trading on our screens are actually not operational. But the way we've unlocked and the way operations have come back, that apprehension has been allayed, and those fears have been allayed partially, not completely, but definitely partially. Talking about BFSI as a whole, another point where I'm very happy to say that I personally was wrong, was expecting that the RBI moratorium would affect banking very, very negatively. But looking at the numbers coming out of Axis Bank, looking at the numbers coming out of State Bank of India, the moratorium figures have dropped, starting at 22%, 25%. Now they're below 10%. Axis's moratorium is below 9%. I was confident that this would lead to a meltdown in banking, but it seems that our borrowers have every intention of giving their money back, which is amazing. Um, Insurance has been good. We've had a good rainfall. So all the crop insurance premiums that have been paid will directly go to the bottom line of these insurance companies. And as it has happened for the last 3 years, The monsoons have been very, very healthy. So the insurance companies have done very, very well because a majority of their business is crop insurance. And thirdly, talking about the BFSI sector as a whole, I was listening to the Fed statement, and more specifically, our ex RBI chief Raghuram Rajan's analysis of the Fed statement. Very, very insightful. What he said was that the statements passed by the Fed for the first time in a while are very dovish, meaning that specifically on inflation. Um, for the first time, maybe not the first time, but the first time in my short career, we are seeing that the Fed is prepared to allow inflation to rise. Of course, they are a first world country and we are not. We're a developing country, so we cannot be as callous with our inflation numbers as they can. But uh, my analysis, or rather Raghuram Rajan's analysis was that if they are allowing, if they are not going to control inflation very heavily, and if they are only going to deal with inflation once it becomes a problem, it shows that the liquidity will not be drying up anytime soon. Um, which is a great news for us because we depend very heavily on FI buying. Uh, Jobs will increase both in America, in the West, and in India, as is obvious by the new campus that Amazon opened in Hyderabad, the 15,000 person campus. This is the largest one it has in the world. Um, and because of this liquidity, I feel, especially in the short term, our markets will do well. Now, I personally cannot see past November, which is the American election. But up until then, I believe that we will definitely have buoyant markets. Any corrections will not be stark, and they will be controlled, and they will be within a range. Um, in fact, Swapnil and I were having a discussion about this. He had a very interesting point to share about the fact that there are no more short positions in the market. Swapnil, if you'd like to tell us what we were discussing the other day on the price movement.
Yes, so what we were discussing was if we see the markets in context, we were in a bear market since 2017, uh, particularly on the broader markets, say the mid caps, small caps of the world, and that ended with the COVID fall. That is the lower circuit which market had hit in the end of March, early April. So it's in short term positioning matters, and so जो बोलते हैं ना मंदी कब खत्म होता है जब एंड में जोर से मार्केट गिरता है एंड एवरीवन इज शेकन आउट एंड दे गिव अप so that is when big bear markets end. So that ended with that lower circuit, and when prime minister announced that we will have a complete lockdown, and the next day market hit a lower circuit. And at that time it very interesting, India had around 500 to 1000 cases, and we had hit a lower circuit, and today we are having, I guess, 30 lakh plus cases, and we are hitting new highs. So this is what market is all about. Is it's all about, in short term it factors in worst case scenario, then suddenly, now the expectation is that, this COVID thing will settle down ultimately. So now market is again expecting a positive scenario going forward. So this is how a rational market can behave in short term. Yeah.
And uh, the other thing that I want to highlight is that while there is a lot of talk about India being a lesser developed country or a developing country, this is the only place with real opportunities. Fang, Fang will get tired sooner or later, right? But Sandeep bhai, I see you agree with me. But eventually, I think there is real demand and real development here, right? And looking at the way our government has protected the other industries, that sort of protection will come to the digital space, even in India. So I'm overall bullish about our growth, whether it is consumption driven, FMCG driven, pharmaceutical driven, data driven. I'm pretty confident about our market. There will be a little bit of musty up and down. We will see a few corrections. We will see we will see bear cycles. But overall, my key takeaway and my key learning from the last 6 months, or rather 2020 as a whole, starting with the forest fires and ending on August 29th, has reaffirmed my faith in the old adagam is just stay invested, right? Manage your investments, but remain in the market, because if you get knocked out of the market, there's no chance for a recovery. Thank you, Anuj. You can continue, please.
Thank you, Yuvraj and Swapnan sir, for the opening lines and your views on the various sectors. As you rightly highlighted, in May and April, we had shared a perspective on the economy, and that we spoke about the potential impact that COVID-19 situation will have on a workforce and the economy as a whole. And if we go back in time and just just have a look at the numbers that we mentioned last time, that quite a few of our workforce is self-employed. To follow it up, we have projected that since around 52% of our total workforce is self-employed and more widely distributed across agriculture, the impact on agriculture-driven workforce would be more or less neutral. However, the same could not be said for the workforce employed in the services and other industries, constitute the remaining 48% share of the entire workforce. So keeping the past in mind, and how are we doing in the present situation? Has agriculture really been a saving grace, or are there other green shoots too? I'll request Mr. Sandeep sir to guide us through his thoughts, please. Sandeep sir, over to you.
Thank you, Anuj. Good morning, everybody. It's with a sense of quite a bit of satisfaction that we return to the table for this follow-on webinar, because making a projection and sticking one's neck out in the month of May was not very easy, to put it very mildly. However, the satisfaction stems from the fact that the call went right, and more than that, it is the fact that the economy survived. Frankly speaking, the question on the mind at that point in time was, will India survive? It was an event of gigantic proportions, to, as I said, you could put it euphemistically, and we were not sure whether we could handle it. Did we have systems in place? Could we place systems in place within a short period of time to take care of the kind of events that were unfolding? Was a big question mark. So that webinar was a real test. Coming to the current context, in the last 4 months, as Yuvraj has already put across, our call has gone right. It is very satisfactory to note the way that India has not only survived, but survived with a lot of strength. Yes, RBI projection of minus 4.5% GDP growth would be on the minds of quite a few people on the panel today. But as one very wise analyst put it to me when I was having a word with him, that Janta GDP nahi khati, Janta roti khati hai. पेट भरा हुआ हो तो कुछ विचार करने का मन करता है, नहीं तो आदमी लड़ाई करने उतर आता है. Agreed. And this is a very educated man, a very wise man with a lot of experience in the government circles and otherwise, who told me this, and it stayed with me for the last 7 days. Why are we using this quotation of this gentleman? Because as per our projections in May, agriculture actually has not only delivered, but it has delivered handsomely. To top it, the rain gods have been very kind. And quiet work, intelligent work, planned work by the authorities, governments both at the center and the state level, have made sure that the next 12 months are also taken care of. We'll come to that separately. Let us first come to the main picture. What does the current freeze frame tell us? The current freeze frame tells us that certain sectors are obviously displaying a lot of vibrancy, no doubt about it. Agriculture to start with, essentials, which also includes pharma for obvious reasons, FMCG, certain services. Yes, 62% weightage of the services sector is what was on our mind at that point in time. And as Yuvraj put it, we are still very iffy because there is that 62% weightage given to services component of the GDP. And certain services, as you can see on the right-hand side, hospitality, entertainment, tourism, so on and so forth, are still somnolent. They are still dormant. They will take their own time to come back to normalcy. So To that extent, yes, we are iffy, but agriculture has taken the leadership role. It has taken over the mantle and it has delivered very handsomely. So let's come to the three main components of the GDP. The first component, as we said, is services, which has 62% weight, where we cannot take a call at this point in time because the picture is still very, very fuzzy. Some services are delivering, some are not, because they are not functioning almost they're not functioning at all, if we may say so. For instance, tourism, for instance, hospitality, they will take time to come back. And once they come back, we will be able to take a call how soon will the services sector also re-emerge from the shadows. But going to agriculture, before we go to agriculture, the other freeze frame tells us a lot of points about the recovery in the economy. Look at the GST collections. The figure had touched an average of a lakh of crores, a little under a lakh of crores by February 2020. The March figure was 97,600 crores. It fell sharply to 32,000 odd crores in April 2020 for obvious reasons. But look at the July figure. It's back to 85,000 crores plus. And on a consistent basis, even the June figure is 90,000 crores. Now, the June figure is slightly exaggerated to the extent that the collections for April and May also are included. Some collections for April and May are also included there, simply because the unlocking phase had to be planned and unfolded in a particular manner. But the July figure tells us that we are back to 85% of the pre-COVID level collections, which is a very sound figure given the kind of conditions that we all are aware of. A similar correlation with e-way bills. The e-way bill figure had touched about 5.5 crore number in terms of numbers generated by February. The average figure by February 2020 was 5.5 crores in number. It fell sharply to 86 lakhs in April because of a total lockdown. Look at the July figure. We're back to 4.83 crores, which again tells us that economic activity reported and calculated is back to nearly 85% of, and with certain elements of the service sector still not playing out. That should give us an idea as to what kind of strength this economy has displayed. Yuvraj has every reason to pat himself and his team on the back. Coming to agriculture, which is what was our main point last time also, and we are going to harp on it even further. Touch wood, the monsoon this year also has been very good up till now, just like last year. Not only in terms of the quantum, but also the spread. Furthermore, if we recollect our May presentation, the government has done some very wise thing by revitalizing and reactivating the number of reservoirs that were there spread across the country. So the figure, which was 107 for the number of reservoirs in August last year, has jumped to 123. There are another 30, 40 odd reservoirs which need to be revitalized, but that I guess will take time with all this pandemic playing out. And yet the water reservoir levels are at 77% as of day before yesterday evening, compared to 76% last year. Now the 76% reservoir level was on 107 reservoirs. The 77% reservoir level is on 123. It goes to show that the actual quantum of water available today in the economy is far better than last year. That is the saving grace. A, kindness of rain gods. B, good planning. But has the good planning stopped there? We'll come to that a little later. Look at the spread of the reservoir levels across the country: north, east, west, central, and south of the country. Very evenly spread. Very good picture. If you take the total 685 districts in the country, 685 districts in the country, less than 20% have reported deficient rains. This is one of the finest monsoons that we have seen in a long, long time. Last year was a recovery period of monsoons because there were 3 soft monsoons prior to that. The good thing about last year's monsoon was it came out later than expected. So the season shifted not from July to October instead of June to September. So we had enough water to take care of the summer months this year. If I recollect, the water levels in the 7 lakes of Mumbai was just 15% in the middle of July. And the municipal corporation had gone for a an unannounced 20% cut. Today, it is more than 83% level. So the August monsoon for the western zone in the country has been excellent. Means to say that there is an even spread of water levels across the country, which is very reassuring. It only goes to point out that the agricultural sector for the next 12 months is taken care of. Next slide, please, Anush. Did the good planning stop only at increasing the number of reservoirs? No. The central and the state governments have very wisely gone in for a structural change in the sown area under various crops. We are talking of the monsoon crop right now. The winter crop will come later. The area under sowing has gone up for sure. Not only that, first point. Basic cereal like rice, which is grown in, which is sown in the monsoon months, has seen an increase of 20%, near 20% in sown area. So if we have to continue with the welfare policies of the government, which had started in the month of March, we can afford to do it once this crop comes to fruition. Similarly, if you look at those crops which have a bearing on the exchequer in terms of high import costs for the country, I'm talking of oil seeds, they've seen a sharp 40% plus growth in the acreage. From 110 lakh hectares, it has gone to 156 lakh hectares, oilseed cultivation, sowing rather. It means that the water, which has been kind, the rainfalls who have been kind to the country have been used judiciously to make sure that the import outgo comes down for the country. Similarly, if you look at sugarcane, which is a very water intensive crop, the area under sowing has been flat. So it has not been allowed to go beyond a certain limit, whereas import intensive crops like oilseeds have seen a sharp jump. It's very wise planning by the authorities. Full marks to the central and the state governments on this count. What does it tell us? That the planning is at macro and micro level as far as agriculture is concerned. It is paying off. This pandemic has shown that this kind of planning right from 2015 onwards is slowly beginning to pay off. Add to it the kind of reforms that have been announced in the pandemic period, in the period May to up till now, the kind of reforms that have been announced in the agricultural sector, there's a lot of hope and promise. God willing, if there's another good monsoon next year, let's hope it touch wood. God willing, if there is a good monsoon next year, 3 good monsoons will ensure at least 1 good crop season even beyond FY22, even if the monsoon is soft, which goes to show that there is enough capacity to create storage of food grains to continue with the welfare policy of free distribution of food crops to at the bottom level of the society, the way the government has done during the pandemic period. And that is what has helped avoid a social unrest in this country. The way food was provided to the lower strata of the society, the rural strata, the migrant labor which went back home and didn't have a job in the interim period till the state government started planning something for them within the state, has taken care of the fact that there has been no social unrest of the magnitude that was possible if this had not happened. And that is why we should, for a change, thank our politicians, our babus, our bureaucrats, and everybody for going in for this kind of a sound planning and implementation of policies. A, prior to the pandemic period, as far as taking care of agriculture was concerned, and B, taking care of the welfare part. Not only did the welfare economics help out in terms of keeping the stomach full, but with the money that was saved by them, and they didn't have to spend on the food grain, they could spend for their essential items, which showed that the essentials and FMCG kept on humming and hawing in this period also. All said and done, God willing, if the winter crop also turns out to be good, FY 2021 harvest should be a bumper one, even more than what we are anticipating at this point in time. And that gives us a cushion for the next 12 months, full calendar, to continue with our welfare policy. If the pandemic sustains to, come back, and then again there is a lockdown, and then there is an unlocking attempt. So if this back and forth continues for another 12 months also, we are taken care of. This country is taken care of. This economy is taken care of, regardless of the minus 4.5% GDP number that has come out. It is immaterial. It's survival which is key at this point in time. India is one of those few land masses which is blessed with all kinds of climatic conditions, with all kinds of soil compositions, and with this kind of water level and planning by our authorities, India can work wonders with our agriculture sector. We may see that paradigm shift unfolding very soon if these kind of policies and the reforms are continued and implemented on a very very calibrated basis going forward. Maybe India may become the granary to the world, which was what was discussed in 1988 when that GATT became WTO. The one point that everybody was discussing, that India had a possibility of becoming the granary to the world. Probably that may unfold sooner than we expect, and agriculture actually will take the mantelpiece. Coming to the manufacturing sector. Okay, now in the manufacturing sector, we can see two distinct patterns. One is private investment obviously took a hit. There is no denying the fact that private investment has taken a hit, but the government put its money where its mouth is. Government has not gone slow. Infrastructure spending, infrastructure projects, road construction, and so on and so forth, particularly in the rural sector, which was open even during the lockdown period, has continued. A clear indication comes from the fact that tendering activity by the government fell just by 5% in this period. A mere 5% fall in tendering activity tells us how much of an effort the governments have put in at the center and the state levels. Once again, a reason to thank them. How does it play out? With the rural economy being open, the rural sector being taken care of in terms of welfare policies and spending capabilities to the best of their abilities, we can see that there has been a sharp change or improvement in the construction related activities and in the auto segment. We have the auto figures in the slide, and it's a very pleasant sight. Look at the two-wheeler numbers. May the sales were 39,286, and in July it was 12 lakh 80, nearly 13 lakh two-wheelers were sold. It gives us an idea what kind of strength that the rural economy possesses in this country, and if we can take care of its growth and its functioning, what is possible going forward. Even four-wheelers have shown this kind of improvement, as you can see in the table. Tractors, obviously, because of the monsoon season, but it goes to show that despite all the negatives associated with the pandemic, the rural sector and the agricultural sector has even helped the industrial sector. That is what we are trying to say. Look at the cement demand. It fell off the cliff from 24.9 million tons offtake in March 2020. It fell to 4.1 million tons for the reason of the lockdown. But look at where we stand in June. It is at 26 million tons plus. Similarly, steel, which fell to 1.6 million tons of offtake from 7.3 million tons in March. 1.6 is in April. We are back to 6.7 in July. Here we should also add that the external sector has helped a lot. A million tons roughly of steel has been exported in the last 2 months, that is July and June, which has also helped out this figure. But what is being presented here, that the manufacturing sector has done better than what we thought. If you remember that slide which Anuj showed you in the beginning of what we had said in May, that maybe there'll be a deeper impact on the manufacturing sector, but that is not the case. Manufacturing sector has done far better, courtesy the agriculture, the rural sector, and that is a very, very reassuring sign. God willing, if the agricultural season takes off the way we are expecting now with this kind of monsoon and this kind of implementation of good policies by the government and a good winter crop, this kind of figure next year will be at a different level, subject to no more resurgence and local lockdowns and unlocking and all that stuff. If it is a blue sky scenario, we will have a stupendously good economic performance next year. Maybe the market is discounting that right now. We don't know that. Market has its own mood, which I think Swapnil and Yuvraj understand better. Finally, the external sector. Even the international trade figures show that not only India, but various economies world over have started functioning in a much more normalized fashion. The Western developed markets had already started opening out since May with some kind of adjustments for local lockdowns and so on and so forth. The Indian government also once again implemented a very sound policy as to where there was export demand already committed for by the players. They were allowed to manufacture and ship it out to the maximum possible extent. They were not subject to complete lockdowns even in the peak period. And so once the opening out happened, we are back to normal levels. Export figure, which had fallen to 10 billion US dollars in April from 21 billion dollars, is back to 23.6 billion dollars in July. It goes to show the kind of resurgence that has happened. Similarly, with the import figures, this goes to show that not only India but the international economy is also humming and hawing to quite an extent. Coming to conclusions, A, already we have been saying and we are continuing to say that the agricultural sector is going to be the bulwark and the torch bearer for the economy in the short run. It is going to help India survive with a lot of grace. There was a time when India used to get that PL 480 rice in the 60s, okay, which was what the farmers in US used to dump into the oceans, and India used to get it. Today, even in the pandemic times, we have indulged in welfare policies, giving free grain to the lower strata of the society, and yet we have this kind of a picture, very handsome picture. Plus, with the kind of reforms that are being unveiled and hopefully will be implemented over a period of time, we are heading for a period where the boundary line between agriculture and industry may start getting softer and softer and softer. And agriculture will ensure that India has the basic 7-8% growth rate going forward in normal times because of the kind of blessings that India as a land has. Furthermore, the kind of agreements that one is seeing unfolding, furthermore, let me rephrase it, furthermore, the kind of de-risking policy that the world market is planning to implement going forward, it may take time, but with Australia, India, Korea, and US coming on the same table, it will take time. Plus the Atmanirbhar policy of the country, the industry is also in for a very good run once everything becomes normal. Thank you, Manoj.
Thank you,
Sir, I
Sandeep.
have a follow-up question to that, Sandeep bhai.
Hello.
Industrialization of agriculture usually comes with a lot of negative connotations for a country like India because the Indian farmers are fiercely protective of their individuality. It will happen. There is no two ways about it. We've seen it before and it will happen again. But will that switch be comfortable or will it not be very smooth?
Look, Yuvraj, it's a very valid point. But last presentation, you had only raised a point of 4 governments coming out with labor policies. Do you remember?
Hmm.
Okay. Similarly, the entire concept of agriculture being under so much of strain and chains and shackles has been because of the political intervention.
Hmm.
It is the land reforms which you are hinting at, right?
Hmm.
But if you look at the agriculture reforms policy that has been announced in the last 4 months, in one go, the government is hats off. We have done a great job. We have to compliment this government for the attempt that it is making. Now, implementation is the key. You have a very valid point. But it is only when agriculture, especially in a country like us, which is blessed with what we spoke of soil constituents, climatic conditions, so on and so forth. If agriculture gets corporatized, think of the Tatas, think of the Birlas being in that field. You think of the Hindalcos in the agriculture, think of the Tata Steels in agriculture, and see what is possible. It's infinite. Very valid question, and it's something to watch out very carefully, and that's why this
Yes,
focus on agriculture.
the
Sorry.
SR group is doing a lot of R&D into greenhouse agriculture. I was looking at the land masses that the SR group has, notwithstanding all their NCLT nonsense. Uh, they've got massive portions of land earmarked for greenhouse growing. So yes, I guess I see what you're saying
Yuvraj,
in terms of
Yuvraj, if I may interrupt you, your favorite company,
which one. Let's not.
Reliance, Reliance Industries, they started acquiring agricultural land masses in the year 2003. I used to go into the interiors of the country to look at those small cap companies, and I used to say, okay, this land is. I didn't want to take names, but you should feel very happy that they
Hmm.
were such wise planners also.
Right. Thank you, Sandeep.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Sandeep sir, for your views on the economy. Swapnil, can you share your overall market view perspective with our audiences, please?
Sure. Thank you, Sandeep sir, for such an insightful data plus your views. So markets, okay. So everyone on the street is confused, like what's happening. We are seeing a V-shaped recovery. Fierce move after the lows made in March and April. So just to reiterate, let's see in markets in some context. As I highlighted, earlier, we were actually in a bear market in mid caps and small caps since 2017. Uh, तुम लोग के portfolios, one used to monitor portfolio. Always people used to complain ये portfolio values नहीं बढ़ रहा है. Index was making new highs like Nifty crossed 12,000 etc. But nowadays one needs to distinguish between broad based markets and Nifty alone, because there is a lot of weightages to certain companies which are doing exceptionally well, Reliance of the world, etc. So that Nifty again is a different indicator, and broad based market, they behave differently. So I'm talking about the broad based market. The portfolio values nahi बढ़ रहे थे 2018, 2019, etc. So slowly market was falling, and then suddenly this COVID thing came up, and markets, due to fear globally, there was a sharp fall. Then gradually, so that was a time when if someone asked me in March, April whether it's time to buy, probably I said I don't know, is, well, things will go worst or whatever. So if one had not bought anything in March, April, that's fair enough, because there was so much uncertainty. Then probably what happened, in few countries saw initial signs of COVID cases suddenly getting stopped. Countries like Italy, etc., which were the top gainers in terms of number of cases. So there was a hint that this thing won't get escalate, and that was the early signs that the things won't get worse from here. Gradually it will get better, maybe 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, that also no one knew. But once when the tide changes, then that was our opportunity, when in April, May, one had to enter the market. If we had a series of webinars, I had constantly highlighted that FOMO, there is a term called FOMO, that is fear of missing out, that would enter the market then. And जब शोएब अख्तर जब बॉलिंग करता था, तो वो ऑलवेज विंड के डायरेक्शन में ही कैप्टन उसको बॉलिंग कराता था, या उसको अगेंस्ट द विंड बॉलिंग नहीं कराता था. तो करंटली मार्केट जो फेज में है, इट्स काइंड ऑफ, if we see the gainers, if we see the breadth of the market, so अभी market is in momentum, so never go against the market. Just let ride the tide. Or there would be indications if market is tiring, if market is showing that is going beyond valuations, there would be indications. When you are driving a car, say at 80 kilometers, and then you तुमको पता है कि आगे जाके यू टर्न लेना है, तो gradually you will slowly, the speed of the car will slow down before you take the turn. तो वो जो slow down होता है, that indications market will give. Currently there are no such indications. And so I continue to feel that market is there is no euphoria yet. This market is justified whatever is happening, because in context, if we see, there is a huge bear cycle which ended. And so people who are believing that this is the new of a bull cycle, say now down the line 3 years, 5 years, they are buying aggressively. They don't see that 100 rupees ka stock, they buy aggressively at 110, 120, because they are seeing targets of 200, 300. So don't get carried away by those 10-20% instant moves कि ये तो अभी चल गया stock, now let's forget this stock. you know छोटे, for small, getting a better price entry, you may be missing the big moves. So this is the broad market psychology which is playing right now. Now, whether this would be one way, obviously not. Markets never moves in one way direction. There would be retracements. There would be, phases where the fear would be more कि अभी गिरेगा तो now people will feel गया, अभी market गया. But this would be healthy corrections. So overall, market is beautifully positioned, and there's a lot of fear in traders, investors, which again I feel is a positive point. The more the fear, the market won't fall. So this is a broad view on the markets, quite bullish on the markets at least till next 2 to 3 months, till November elections in US. That is again a key event to watch out. Uh, no predictions. I don't know who is going to win or lose. But I think this fierce move would end with vaccine announcement. The day when the vaccine gets announced, that day I think there would be extreme euphoria, and probably one should get out of the markets at that time. Till then, market is in a very good mood, and be invested and accumulate on dips. Don't get shaken out by small corrections.
Thank you, Swapna. Are there any sectors that you think at this point are pretty interesting for anyone to get into?
Okay, so we are into fundamental research particularly. So I would just like to highlight few sectors where I see sustainable earnings growth for the companies. There are two different things. One is getting entering the market at good valuation, when the prices are good. And other thing is, how certain sectors as a whole, as a earnings, how will do well. So again, at that time also we had highlighted pharma is one sector which is, good to enter. But what happened suddenly, there is so much re-rating in pharma. Uh, Almost 60 to 70% of the companies in pharma sector are their lifetime highs. Not only 52-week highs, they are at lifetime highs. So again, if we see the context, pharma was an underperformer since last 2 3 years. And what happened in this last 6 months, if we say, due to this lockdown thing and COVID thing, and of course, there was a blame game on China, that this all started with China. So many companies globally are now thinking for a second source of alternative, for their raw materials in various sectors. So pharma and chemicals are beautifully placed, where suddenly in last 6 months we saw so many companies getting FDA approvals. Last 3 साल में जितने approvals मिले थे, that number outperformed, in last 3 to 5 months. So this is a big re-rating. जब ये FDA approval मिलता है Indian companies को, of course there was a need of the hour because production got halted, so demand बहुत था. But क्या बोलते हैं, at when there is some adversity, some people gain, some people lose. So pharma and chemicals, they are beautifully placed now. And there are companies which almost gained 3x to 4x in very short period. Now why this happens? कैसा रहता है, एक company रहता है which is under owned, undervalued, and suddenly now everyone is looking at that company. सबको वो buy करना है. तो जब भी aggressively, when there are so many people, looking at that companies, तो वो valuation game, then people give higher multiples, which sometimes is not able to digest by the market players. कि अभी ये 2x हो गया है, तो let's not buy this. But वही stock 3x होता है, 4x होता है. Aarti Drugs, Iol Chemicals, Laurus Lab, these companies became 2 3x in just 2 months. So this is one space where there will be sustainability in earnings. छोटे companies है in overall global would become sizable. Opportunity is very high. Companies like Aarti Industries, companies like Naveen Fluorine, PI Industries. Uh, Basically, some are in agrochemicals, some are in chemicals, some are in related to pharma and API. So this segment is beautifully placed. But क्या एक साथ सबका नजर गिर गया इन पे, because 2 3 triggers suddenly came together, and that re-rating happened. So don't just jump into these sectors, but from a earnings perspective, this is very beautifully placed. यहाँ से 2 3 years there would be very decent numbers this companies would report. So this is one sector which we like, particularly in large caps. We like Cipla and Sun Pharma, where still the comfort level is there, considering the valuations. They're not very stretch valuations. And in mid caps and small caps, we like Granules and Naveen Fluorine and PI Industries. These 4 5 companies, again, you can still invest at current valuations also. So this is one sector one can keep a note of. And obviously market is many, there would be stock specific things which we regularly share, and we make reports that would be given to all.
Swapnil, as in the pharma sector already zoomed up so much, and do you think there is still some steam left, or
Yes,
has it run
so
its course?
yeah, that's what I did because of two, three triggers, coinciding that re-rating happened fast and uh, one feels very stretched that abhi itna to chal gaya, abhi is it the time to actually get out or fresh buying kar sakte hai ya nahi? So obviously thoda stock specific रहना पड़ेगा as a sector. Everything can't move, at one go. As I highlighted, almost 70 companies are their all-time highs. So that shows कि sector में कुछ potential है. Now from here on, be choosy. Don't just invest कि pharma company है तो चलो buy कर लेते हैं, ये stock नहीं चला है buy कर लेते हैं. Don't keep that approach. Uh, you need to jot down, the company specific fundamentals also. So there we feel Cipla, Sun Pharma, Granules, these are all better placed.
Okay. Thank you, Swapnil. Are there any other sectors do you think that have a potential going forward?
Yes, other sector which I like is IT, particularly mid-cap IT. This sector is also better placed from a growth perspective down the line. A lot of developments is happening on the IT part. If we see so many things have changed in our lives also due to the infrastructure provided by the IT. And now again, world is changing so fast. Now cloud concept, data analytics, iOS. See, we are using Facebook, you get so many ads. If you search something, you get all those relevant ads. ये सब छोटे छोटे चीजें वैसे just imagine how many different innovative things are being going on, and these bigger companies like Microsofts of the world, they are they are thinking of 100 years आगे जाके क्या होगा, and they are working on that. And a lot of outsourcing work is been given, which many Indian companies are very key beneficiary. Total IT spend जितना globally होता है उसका 21% इंडिया को मिलता है, because India has a good talent, of engineers particularly, and so 21% is a huge spend. So IT would definitely be a beneficiary. नए नए concepts आ रहे हैं. So mid cap IT is particularly, Mindtree, Persistent Systems, Sonata Software, this kind of mid cap companies, small mid cap companies. This I feel has a lot of potential going forward. And the bigger companies like Infosys, TCS, they also gradually would do well. So this year I feel the comfort level is high because the market has run so much. So there would be some correction in certain sectors, but IT is where when I don't feel there would be a big correction. So here the risk reward is favorable, and one can comfortably be invested in mid cap IT as a whole. So here the comfort level is very high. So again, IT is and this is one sector where there are sector indexes. Every sector has an index of its own, comprising of the relevant companies. So IT is the only sector which is at all-time high at the sector level. Again, this is a very good indicator that things are doing very well for the IT sector.
Thank you, Swapnil. If I were to ask you, is there any Indian version of the Amazons of the world, let aside with the TCSs and the other very major players? Is there any one particular company or a stock that you think will potentially outperform in the future?
Again, so as the FANG stocks where there is so much fancy, FANG basically means Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. So this term is known as FANG. And these five stocks have done phenomenally well over a period of last 10 years. And they have actually, the drivers of the US market because their valuations has going on and on and on. So Amazon, again, very unique business model, disruptive business model. Amazon क्या नहीं करता है आज की डेट में? You click a button and your things get delivered next day, etc. So Amazon is doing that globally across countries. Google, Apple, such unique business models. uh, basically in India, if one company which I feel can be such innovative and maybe kind of matches such kind of thing, not on the business model front, but the valuation game, the size, the size of the scalability of the sector, is this company InfoEdge, particularly earlier known as Naukri.com. They have seven, eight, they have four key businesses and three investments. This all as a whole, I feel it has a quality of a great startup kind of a thing, the valuation game, the scalability. So this is one company which I feel that can be a big player, big gainer, if I may say, going forward. Naukri.com, there is a job portal, is a leader. 99 acres, that is a real estate portal, again is a leader. Jeevansathi.com and Siksha, that is an education portal. These are the four key businesses, all are cash flow rich, less investments, only generating cash flows. And their investment, particularly into Zomato, this can be a big game changer. This is all a valuation game. Currently they are burning cash, but this all companies down the line will be getting huge valuation. Uh, every 2 years, Zomato value is getting doubled. The money they raise from the private equity guys. So they have a 22% stake. So this is a kind of one company which is very close to such kind of unique business models, and is a combination of 6, 7 things. Allocate some portion in this company, you get a handsome returns.
Thank you for your viewpoints, Swapni.
Yeah.
I think we have covered up all the aspects that were meant for this webinar session. I think we should take up the Q&As going forward. To begin with, Mr. Vinod Gupta had asked a question. In pharma, what is your view on solar active pharma?
Okay. This is also again recently a company which has been in limelight because again of the API segment, and this name also got highlighted in our checklist also. And of late, the price action has been also very good. So I think still the view is quite bullish on this company.
Thank you. There was a question asked by Mr. Harsh Goswami. One of the risks in economy nowadays is bank frauds. Bank frauds reported by banks of rupees 1 lakh and above value have more than doubled in financial year 1920. The number of such frauds have increased by 28% in volume. I think I would request Yuvraj sir or and Sandeep sir to have a
Yeah, I'll
viewpoint.
take that one. At least we're not having any more Nirav Modis. Bank frauds of a lakh of rupees is a problem. Yes, I understand. But compared to the multi-million, billion-dollar rupee frauds that used to happen, were a step up. And there is bound to be some slippage in any economy, in any lockdown. And it shows that there were some people whose backs were against the wall. Uh, but that doesn't overly concern me. My opinion is this level of slippage is going to exist. We just have to deal with it. I'm not concerned by it.
Also, one more question, Mr. Ganjan Raj. Had
Just
every
to
crash.
add,
Sorry.
the figure
Go ahead, Swap.
this guy had mentioned is something 70. He has mentioned some figure. The size of the fraud total to 71,000 crore. So just to give you a context, like the total advances size in India currently is close to 96 lakh crores, and this is 71,000 crores. So what happens is 71 absolute numbers looks like a big number, but if we see as a percentage, it's minuscule because we need to see in that context. So total size of the advances is 96 lakh crore, and 1% is 90,000 crore, and this is 0.7%. That's it. Yeah.
Every crash has two bottoms. Does this crash take another bottom sometime soon?
Uh, it's a very interesting question. Generally, what I have seen is, every crash doesn't have exactly two bottoms. A big bottom is made, then there is some pullback, some sharp move, and then there is a correction again. that second correction, market fear is extremely high, more than the bottom wala movement, because now again that bottom is in their mind, and they feel कि अभी ये भी तोड़ेगा market, ये भी लेके जाएगा. That is when the time to buy. So so kind of, I think we have surpassed that March April bottom has been made. Then there was one pullback, then again there was a correction. That time the fear was extreme high कि ये तो वापस गया अभी, and after that see the recovery. So I don't think that levels of 8,000 Nifty and all that would come back now.
Again, a few more specific, actually more specific questions. HCL and what are the views on blue chips? And apart from that, someone has also asked us, what do you consider is any update in the banking sector, and particularly any name which we will focus on the next 2 months?
The banking sector, if one were to invest and trade, it would be ICICI Bank. This is one company which is, much better place in terms of many aspects. I won't go into the detail of the aspects right now. If you want to buy, this is one company, ICICI Bank, and if you want to buy in mid caps, it's City Union Bank. These two companies are very well placed. So if one wants to invest in banking, look out for these two companies.
Okay, and your view on HCL and the blue chip stocks?
Yes, HCL again will do well. Positive on HCL Tech going forward.
And any other potential blue chips you think that could be going well in 2020-ish?
Okay, so blue chip companies, what's happening? There's a lot of action actually in the broader markets. So just a view, try to look out for companies in mid caps. I think they would do better than blue chips, because again, if we connect the context, the blue chips did very well in this bear market, 2000 to 2020. So I don't say they would fall or they would correct, but then opportunity size is much larger in mid caps. And if you want to invest in blue chips, then I think Kotak is my favorite. And there's one stock which I am comfortable at almost at this valuations also. So one can look at Kotak, one can again look at ICICI Bank if you want to go for blue chips.
Swapnil, earlier we had mentioned about PSU. What is your current view on PSU? And will the disinvestment program bring down the prices like with HAL?
Like with?
HAL, HAL.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we had discussed this around 2 months back. Like if we want to make 2x, 3x from a 2, 3 year perspective, then PSU is one space which I feel बड़ा पैसा बनेगा. And this is the test. There was the initial good moves in the PSU companies, and now kind of they are languishing. So जैसे मैंने बोला था, there would be period, the 3 months, 6 months, there would be no price movements, and you will feel ये तो कुछ participate ही नहीं कर रहा है. So this is exactly the pain points which one will have. And disinvestment, if you हेल का प्राइजेस 300 1300 1400 हो गया था around 2 weeks back, and this investment is happening at 1,000 rupees. So there's a sharp correction. So this price discovery of a disinvestment, that is all decided by the government, and generally they are at discounts, etc. So actually it's a wonderful opportunity to buy HAL. Yesterday I think the OFS is over. Buy at 1,000 rupees. It will be back to 1,200 probably in next 1 month.
Also companies like Gale.
Sorry, Gale.
Yeah.
So particularly the sector, few companies which I highlighted that point, which particularly from I like from a business perspective also, were HPCL, BPCL, NTPC, National Aluminium, Engineers India, and Power Grid. If you want to pick from the PSUs, so I particularly had jotted down these 7 companies.
But Swapnil, sorry to interrupt you. I'm very comfortable with SBI's valuation also. It's not at a demanding price.
Yes, yes. SBI actually, if we consider the market context, then SBI is actually lagging way behind, and in terms of valuations,
Yeah, it's cheap.
very cheap. If we consider the valuation of the subsidiaries, then bank is available at way discount to any other bank.
And
Uh,
the overall story of SBI is intact, right? Great penetration, great loss provisioning, NPA provisioning. All in all, I think SBI is very well placed from a
yes.
long-term investment perspective. What's your opinion?
Yes, what happens basically in the PSU banks, particularly, there is a lot of discomfort by the overall markets because we were in such a situation where there would be a big helping hand required to drive the economy back to normal. So banks, particularly SBI, has a 20% market share. So government would require PSU banks to lend aggressively, maybe at the cost of asset quality. So this is kind of a broad overhang which generally the street has. But with earnings coming up, numbers coming up, people tend to forget, and then again, prices can move. So off late, like recently last week, now again SBI is participating. It was underperforming for a long time. So what happens when market moves? Then suddenly the people think, "Abhi ye nahi chala hai, now this is undervalued compared to ICICI." Then different sort of arguments come up, and so again, nothing wrong in buying SBI.
Also, Mr. Goswami has asked a question about one of Sandeep Bhai's favorite companies, LGB Forge. Sandeep
Oh,
Bhai,
I can't, Yuvraj. We are on the buy side. Can we comment? Mr. Goswami, I'll take that question off line with you because this is one company which we are tracking. We are tracking very actively. I'll take your question. If you can call me or send me a mail, I will definitely respond to your question.
yeah, so unfortunately, Sandeep Bhai has regulation against discussing it on an open forum. But if Mr. Goswami wants to share his contact details with the panelists, we'll be sure to get in touch.
It will be a pleasure talking to you also, sir. No problems.
One more question Mr. Hardik M had made. The RBI governor said the Indian stock market is not in sync with the real economy, which will result in correction. What are your views?
He has no job commenting on the market. Let him manage his liquidity. He After he said it, markets are 500 points up. What does he know about the markets? If Raghuram Rajan would have made a statement like this, I would have believed it. Um, I don't give too much of value to that statement.
So what happens, this kind of news are actually get sensationalized, and actually I heard that interview. It was a kind of a passing comment, and कोई अपने को पूछेगा कि इकोनॉमी डाउन है और मार्केट्स तो भाग रहा है, हाँ वो सूनर और लेटर मैच हो सकता है. इट वाज काइंड ऑफ दैट काइंड ऑफ अ स्टेटमेंट, बट न्यूज में ऐसे आ गया कि गवर्नर बोल रहा है मार्केट तो गिर जाएगा. सो डोंट गेट टू मच वेटेज ऑन सच काइंड ऑफ इवेंट्स.
A more softer question. One stock option, I think it's more towards you, which someone can keep for 5 years without any look over. I know it's a little tougher question, but Mr. Ganjan has requested that question.
So we have discussed today Info Edge. You can buy this stock and don't see for 5 years. Perfect fit.
Okay. And I guess overall we have covered up all the questions that have been asked of this group. I would like to thank everyone for being a part of this interesting webinar. Thank you, Sandeep sir. Thank you, Yuvraj sir. Thank you, Swapnil, and the dear attendees. And hoping to see you all again in the next webinar too.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
attending. If there's any other questions, please leave them on the Q&A, and we'll get back to you. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.